Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be telling you one of my favorite stories. Got a case study here with Sam, and we're going to talk about how he, over the last couple of years, has pretty much put on 10 miles per hour using our remote program. And without further ado, I want to give it away to Sam to introduce yourself.
Hey, yo, I'm Sam Bonilla. I go to Tusculum University in Tennessee, and I am currently a junior. Um, you go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. So I'm really excited about this because if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, one of the stories that I tell often is about this guy named Sam. And I've done a couple videos with him, and you've probably seen highlights of him and stuff like here and there. But if you're new to me and the company and everything else and what we do, I'm excited because Sam is one of the reasons why I do what I do, and one of the reasons that I do it the way that I do it with how myself and other coaches train guys. So, what I want to talk about with you, Sam, is let's tell a little bit about when we first met. So, I believe it was your dad that reached out to me, sent me a DM. It was in going into your spring of your freshman year at college, and said, "Hey, we kind of want to work together." And then we hopped on the call. And so tell me where you were at that point in time.
Okay, so at that point, my freshman year, I was about 82 to 83. I had dead arm at the time. And I had just no energy. Um, I also wasn't eating a lot and drinking a lot and sleeping enough. And that's going to be probably a recurring theme throughout the case of this is the eating, drinking, and sleeping.
Did,
But
did
it
you at the
just
time before we talked, did you recognize though that that was an issue?
well, I had also had an eating disorder just before that. So that made it so I'd known the eating part, but it just really didn't click until we started focusing on it. Um,
That's so, and didn't you say like you were 82, 83 at best?
yeah, yeah. When I was feeling good, was when I was throwing 82 to 83.
Yeah. And then
So,
describe to people what dead arm, because maybe a lot of people haven't heard about it, or maybe they've had the same symptoms but didn't know what it was called. But tell them what that felt like for you.
for me, it felt like my arm was just never recovering. It always felt slow and achy, and it just felt like even if I gave it 3 4 days rest of not even throwing, it wouldn't ever feel like it was wanting to be ready to throw again, healthy or anything. It just felt slow and just kind of lagging behind.
Is that days, weeks, months? How long did that go on?
Probably a month and a half. It was like towards the end of that month and a half, it was really frustrating because at that point I was like, I have done everything in my power to just take it light and figure something out, and it still when nothing was happening.
Because so many guys that as a player you have the intention of wanting to get better. You're trying everything you can. I know I've gotten on you a few times about trying to find a workout or a drill or something just on a random TikTok where you like like what are you doing?
Hmm.
Because they were like, well, I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying this, but at the end of the day, because you're trying so many things, you're not really trying one thing and giving it everything you got. And so that's what this setup is. And I've told guys in the past, so there's three setups, and you've kind of taken advantage of all three of them. There's guys that work with me just completely remotely. There's guys that work with me um, in person, like in my summer program, where guys like yourself will move for the summer and live down. And there's guys that kind of do the hybrid of the two, where they're working with me a little bit in person or remotely. And I think one of the big reasons, and I think you'd agree, is you can only get so much because you're from your coach, because they got a family, they got a job, they're restricted on how many hours they can even see you. So you need that other voice. You need someone that can give you more of that attention, even because the best coach in the world is just limited by, administration or whatever it is. So that's a thing that keeps coming up. So let's go back to your sitting low 80s, you got dead arm, and we hop on the phone. And what do you feel like? Because I remember what it was, and you already alluded to it. What say again? What the biggest area of opportunity for you was?
My wellness score.
So it covers a lot of different things. We won't get into all the details and bog you down with that, but food, sleep, and water are a big component. if you're not eating enough food, if you're not drinking enough water, if you're not sleeping enough, we can't really expect as human beings that we're going to be at our best. And if we're going into a workout or a game or a throwing session not at our best, we then have to recover from that. So we're even further down, and then we can't recover as well because we don't have enough food, sleep, and water. And that's what I built my company on, was that health first approach. And there's really like three pillars that I talk about within when guys work with me. Health first approach, what we really spent the last year and a half on, which is finding basically a new power source, spine dominant versus limb dominant. And then the last one is the progressions on how we progress guys. So we talked a little bit about food, sleep, and water. Talk to me about your journey, because you said there was a bit of an eating disorder. I appreciate you sharing that. Not a lot of guys are comfortable sharing that. And there's tons of different variations and levels of it. But then there's just normal high school and college guys don't think that they eat enough or drink enough or sleep enough. How do you feel like you were able to take care of that? How do you feel like you were able to simplify it? What seemed to work for you to at least kind of get you over the hump and start seeing some results?
Well, at first I couldn't eat at all. At one point during my freshman year, I'd probably only eat roughly 500 calories a day. Which I don't know if you know anything, but that's not enough, especially for how much you're burning in a day. I was eating less than what I was burning. So, um, it just started with finding foods that I can enjoy constantly, and a wide variety of them too, not just like two things that I enjoy, because then you burn out on it fast. Um, so then it's finding a bunch of things I enjoy, and maybe also some liquid calories. That was a big part of it as well. Because now I just drink a bunch of water every day. It's just because I'm not a big soda person at all. I despise it, honestly. Um, so was finding a way when I couldn't eat to get liquid calories in, whether it was orange juice, apple juice, milk, chocolate milk, like just something I can enjoy. Um, and then also just finding foods that you can enjoy as well, and then consistently eating it as well. That was a hard part for me. I'd bring food with me everywhere. Snacks in my backpack. Rice Krispie treats had become my best friend at that point. I had gotten 2 boxes of those big 40 packs that would just sit in my room, and I'd grab 2 of them every time I left my room. Just no matter where I was going, I'd grab 2 of them and I just snack on them just because I was trying to eat something. Um, and then yeah, just that was probably the biggest thing. Just trying to eat more, and trying to find a way to eat it consistently.
Yeah. And for those guys watching, the reason you were able to do that wasn't because I mean, you intuitively, you understood like, yeah, I'm probably not eating enough food, right? But until we had really talked about it and the implications and what is going on, and then I started holding you accountable for it through our daily tracking, that's what was able to make the shift. So with talk, so I talked to a couple other guys about this too. When you were in person with me, talk to me about how much you guys bragged about sleep.
All the time. It was like we would come in and we on our whiteboard we had our weight, because we did this thing called the gain train. We were trying to gain as much weight over the summer, and then we had next week we'd have sleep on how many hours we slept a night, and we'd always point out like if a guy got like 6 hours of sleep, he would just be in shambles that day because everybody would just be like, "Dude, what are you doing? We are over here getting at least 7, 8 hours, 10 hours of sleep a night." Like we even had a call recently in the winter in December, and you asked me how many hours of sleep I got, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I got 11." And everybody was like, "Whoa!" So I mean, that sleep portion of it is makes a difference. It's yeah. I make sure on my weekends here, um, I'm sleeping a lot, and as often as I can. I take a lot of naps too, so it helps.
Yeah. And credit to you, because you with the college schedule, even with high school schedule, sometimes you get sick. Like you've gotten sick a handful of times over the last couple of years because you're a human being and that happens. And when we're working together, we're able to figure out like, okay, how do we adjust the schedule accordingly and not hold you to some high standard of you have to get 11 hours of sleep every night or else you're a bum. Like, but how can we get more and understanding the importance of it and then having that community aspect? So when you're in person, you've got the guys around you. And then in the remote program, we've got a messaging app where everyone's in there and you're able to see all the other guys what they're doing. We've got a wins group that where when someone hits a win, and I'm probably going to start telling guys to, hey, just shout out when you've gotten 11 hours of sleep. So we can build the culture just like we can in person, also in the remote group. So, because that's a huge component of it with the community aspect. So, we've got the health figured out. You're starting to eat more, sleep more, drink water. Like we're figuring that out. So, fast forward a couple weeks, month or two, you're still in the spring. We've never met in person. What happened?
Um, it finally clicked. My arm finally started slowly. I think it was 2 or 3 weeks after I started trying to eat more, sleep more, drink more, uh, that my arm finally started to heal. It didn't feel so groggy, it didn't feel slow, and the endurance finally came back into it. I could barely throw 20 pitches without getting tired. Like it was like that bad. And then at one point, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks in, I'd thrown a 75 pitch bullpen, and after I was like, I feel great. Like it, because it was 2 sets with like 35 pitches, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like the best day of my. It felt like the best day of my life at that point. I was so happy, just over the moon, and it really helped. Honestly, just like a big old motivation. And I think that the accountability thing is honestly what helped me the most, because it's really hard to do a lot of this on your own. Um, Especially when you wake up and you're tired or you're sore and you really just don't want to. But like having that accountability part really just it helps so much. Just push through it, because then
What does that look like when you don't have the accountability? Because you got mom and dad who are always going to be on you because they're trying to support you and do the best for you. Then you got your coaches who are on you, which is a different beast. So what is it like not having that? And what's it like when you've got someone in your corner, a coach and instructor that's dedicated to you?
when you don't have somebody that's accountable, like um honestly, a little bit this winter, I really like we didn't really communicate a lot. I just send you videos and you give me some feedback, but I didn't have somebody in my ear saying, hey, you got to go do this today, you got to go do this today, you got to do. I had to wake up on my own and go do it. I go drag. I had nobody to throw with over break, because where I live currently, I moved there during COVID, so I don't have friends there. um and so I had to go drag myself down there every single day to go throw and then lift after. And it's tough. When you wake up and you're laying in bed, you're like, man, it's 30 degrees out. There's snow on the ground. I really don't want to go. But no one else is doing it if you are. Yeah, because I'd show up, no one else is there. No one else is there right when the facility opens to go throw and lift. And it just like it honestly is kind of rewarding. When you finally get done, it's so nice because you're like, yeah, I got that done today. Versus if I didn't, some days I would slay. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Some days I'd be like, oh man, I threw really heavy, I threw high intensity yesterday. I'm just gonna not go today. Um, and even though it's only like 2 hours out of my day to go do that, it's like you just feel kind of cruddy not doing it. Versus when you do it, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm getting at least 1% better today, and that's what's important.
Yeah. And then how is that rewarding feeling stacked now? I mean, you're coming up on 2 years where you've consistently done what most people don't, so you can get to where most people won't. And you got to the point where we haven't talked about it yet, but what's the hardest you've thrown?
93,
93 point something, I think.
93.4.
Okay. So you were able to get to that point because you consistently, even when you didn't want to, but you were being held accountable, whether it's a wellness sheet or a check in with me or when you were in person. Now, what does that feel like looking back?
It's very rewarding because you get done with that. Say the first day you do it, you get done, you're like, man, that was great. It gets you excited for the next day, because you're like, I get to come back and do this tomorrow and just build upon what I'm already getting better at. And that's the best thing. And obviously, every day is not going to be perfect. Some days are way harder than others, and some days it's not going to click. But honestly, you need those days. So then when you have the good days, they're just so much better. Because I found out like because there were some days where it just wasn't clicking here and there, and it was really really frustrating. But when it finally stood to start to come together and then just stack upon each other, it just like I felt like I was on the moon half the time. It was great. Um, and just had like having that accountability with you because then we started communicating a lot more as well, and it just felt a lot better. Um, Having someone that can help me figure these things out versus trying to do it on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing you've had to figure out, we went hard on it over the last year, is this new concept of spine dominant versus limb dominant. And the way I describe this to guys is if you try to yank your head when you throw, knowingly or not, if you try to yank a glove tuck, if you try to move your arm a lot faster when you're in your arm swing back and you're trying to kick your foot out and really like lunge with your leg, all of those are your limbs. You're using your limbs to try to develop velocity. Meanwhile, one of the most strongest components of our body, in addition to, yes, our legs, is our spine and everything around it, our trunk, our torso, our abs, like all that, the core. So many guys try to use their legs. Yes, completely agree. But then they go from legs to yank and twist and just all these things, ignoring the next most strongest part of our body here. So when I can get guys to learn how to understand that first, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like it's really strong here as opposed to my arms. And then pattern movements to become more aware of the spine. And then do the drills to where the spine does a lot of work, the legs do a lot of work, and the arms don't have to. Tell me about that journey.
Um, yeah, my freshman year, very limb dominant. Um, it was always just here. If you saw my video, wasn't using my legs and just trying to just throw it with my arm. And obviously, my arm would always get really tired really fast if you're just going to try and use your arm the whole time. Um, and then I started working with Scott, and he was like, "All right, think about it this way: your feet first." And then we slowly built it up one part at a time, just from my feet up. And then we got to the spine, and the spine I still struggle with a little bit. It's because I've been throwing with my limb dominant for so long. It's really hard to switch that still, but um, a lot of the times I just sit there before I even throw, just trying to like feel just the spine, and it can be pretty tough some days. But getting into that spine dominant feeling makes everything just so much better. It just less pressure on here and here, and it comes off way easier. It looks like you're throwing harder, and it doesn't even look like it. And I think that's the best thing because when I first got to my new school here, um, and I was throwing live and just in the bullpens, everybody was like, "Dude, it doesn't even look like you're trying." And here you are throwing 90, like it's nothing. And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." And meanwhile, these guys are still trying to use all their arm to throw the ball.
The greatest gift I always tell guys that I can give a player is the gift of effortless velocity, where it's exactly how you said it. And guys say it differently, but where it looks really hard, like the ball's moving really fast, but the pitcher's not even trying at all. Like that's it's the greatest gift. So let's talk because we've talked about it, but never put like a name to it or anything. How I progress you guys in your programs from a throwing standpoint. So when you don't feel well, when your wellness score is down, when things are going well, had you ever worked with a coach in the past that scripted out every single day from a low, medium, high, water bag, rest, like all the levels of intensity that we do? Had you ever worked with a coach like that?
Never. I never even knew that it could be a thing.
Fair.
Um,
Go ahead.
'Cause, like I just because I had worked with guys in the past, and we just do driveline stuff and just like everybody does. But there was no recovery into it. There was no low, medium, high intensity. It was same medium intensity. And then there was okay, we're gonna go try and throw as hard as we can. And so going working with you and having to take my shoes off and my socks off and do water bag stuff and move at 50%. If you did more than 50%, you would get onto you. It's like, oh, I just throwing it really slow, basically. Like, because without thinking about it, you throw it way harder than 50% if you don't focus on it. Um, and so just seeing that all laid out, it gives me clarity of mind, at least because I have ADHD. Just because like trying to have put it all together, it can be really challenging sometimes. Um, and so just having it all laid out so I don't have to think about it makes it so much better.
That's well said, because so many of the instructors, and I used to be that instructor, you teach what you were taught. They show up for a week or for a weekend or whatever it is, one day a week. You give them some drills. I'll see you next week. There's no intensity. There's no like progressions about it. There's no, and I mean, and you know this just as well as anybody else from both remote and in person. Like there's days where I tell you, I know today was supposed to be a high velocity, like high intent day is a velocity day. We're gonna get out both radar guns, all the things. I'm like, we're not doing it today. And and I don't think, just like you said, a lot of people don't understand that. They don't know it's even a thing. And it's so important. And I've just seen it play out over so many years. And then I spent about a decade as a personal trainer where you have to account for a rest day. You have to account for a lower intensity day while the body's still recovering, because it might take 2 days for the average person. It might take Sam because his wellness scores as a freshman are so low, it might take him 3 or 4 days. And I need to be able to account for that so that you can see the success and see the results and get that momentum. So what, regardless of program, but like, tell me, did you feel like you knew what you were doing when you reached, when like in high school or even middle school, whenever it was, when you went to go work with an instructor? Like, did you feel it? What did you feel like you got out of that?
Um, well, it was interesting because he got me throwing decently hard or whatever for a high schooler. And I was like, okay, it was new, it was different. So I was like, obviously he knows what he's talking about then, right? Like I've never used these plyo balls before, and here I am throwing plyo balls and seeing results. Obviously he knows what he's doing, and this is just how it is. If I keep doing this, I'm gonna be throwing 95 in no time, it seems like. Um, but then I plateaued really fast after I gained that velocity, and it was just like, um, yeah, it felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, but at the same time, like I thought this is how you're supposed to do it, and I was like, maybe this is just what I'm at. Like, there's no like this is the limit.
And you're the type of guy that you're the, everyone loves to have a guy like you as a coach. Like a coach wants a guy who's going to come in, do the work hard, and yes, sir. But then when you're hitting the plateaus and you're just expecting like the coach has all the answers, but then say you're kind of hitting that plateau and they don't, you're just kind of like, what do I do?
Hmm.
And so that's what I really try to focus on is, and a lot of times it does come from just the health. We've talked a lot about health and not as often or much about the mechanics, but we definitely talk about mechanics. Um, I mean, just touch on that for just a minute. Like, what do we do from a drill standpoint, mechanic standpoint, from in your program and what you're doing, and even the water bag stuff? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so before we even throw a baseball, I mean, I just do 3 sets of different throwing things. Whether it's the loose body, just kind of whipping my arm around with the just feeling that through, or water bags, and that it's laid out into 2 things that you're focusing on that day. And you do your throws focusing on one thing, and then you do the other set of throws focusing on the other thing with the med balls or whatever, like anything we do. And it's uh, low intensity, medium intensity, and it's all the same thing though, and laid out really well to where you're not overworking yourself on that day, and you still have some energy to lift after or whatever. You're not just all drained and all in by the time you're done. And yeah.
I'll give Sam more credit because he's one of those guys, like I said, like all coaches love, where he once he puts his mind to something and he makes that decision, he's all in. So you use other devices and other equipment that not everyone's using and they don't have to. But so for example, you've got the device where you put it around here and you can test your internal, external rotation strength, your scapula strength, your grip strength. And that gives me even more data, especially from a health first mindset, to know, okay, this is where his arm strength is. This is the exercises he needs to be doing. This is where they're trending. So he's absolutely ready to have a high intensity bullpen day, or he is absolutely not at all ready to because of where the numbers have been and because of all the numbers we're tracking. Now I know exactly how to make a precision decision. Like if you're a doctor or a surgeon, you make decisions based on where you're gonna, cut someone up and use a scalpel, but you don't use some big old butcher knife and you're just kind of like whacking away. So you got to be precise with the decisions. And similarly, when you were doing the other programs, it's, hey, let's throw these heavy balls, it's super high intent, don't know when, how, where, but this is kind of what I'm supposed to do. But you're just really not sure if that's the right decision for you. And I've seen so many guys, I've talked to a lot of parents too, where guys get hurt because they weren't thinking about how their health was. They weren't thinking about a program and progressions, and it doesn't put them in necessarily a good situation. So I guess to kind of wrap up, for guys that are, they're thinking about, hey, maybe I do this remote option. Maybe I do this kind of called the HC4 program, Healthy Core 4, the healthy things we talk about. Um, what would you, if you had to encapsulate in a little, I don't know, just recommendation, or what would you say about it to get guys to think and consider it?
It's if you really want to take that next step and do great things, I this is what I would recommend, and I would continue to doing this no matter what. Um, and if you get what you put into it at the same time, he's not just gonna put some magical formula on you, and you're just gonna do great things. You really have to work for it. Because I mean, shoot, that first summer I was living with you, I put on 24 pounds just over the summer from 170 to 194. And it wasn't easy either. Like, trying to eat that much food in a given time frame was not easy. And yeah, like I said, if you get in what you get what you put into it.
All right, so if you guys watching are considering it and want to join the remote program, you can always shoot me a DM on social media. There should be a link on this video as well. And then the main video on my YouTube page covers all of this in detail. And then we can set up a call and we will see if it is a right fit. And then we will get you onboarded and ready to go. So, Sam, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And everyone
Yeah, of course.
watching, we will talk soon.